Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Just a couple of months ago, I picked up a Sig P365X, and I also purchased a standard P365 sized grip module with that at the same time. And now that I've had a couple of months to kind of play around with it and shoot it and carry it, I'm ready to kind of give you guys my overall first impressions of this gun. But first, let me thank the sponsor of today's video for sending me the Sig P365X to talk with you guys about today. Big Tex is known for their awesome online selection and outstanding customer service. You can find almost anything you need through their website, and they've recently opened up a range in Conroe, Texas. So if you're ever in their neck of the woods, tell them I said hi. So now I want to kind of just talk about my first impressions actually shooting the Sig P365X, and then later we'll kind of get into my thoughts on carrying and concealing it. But if you've seen some of my prior videos, I think I made a video a couple months ago that was something along the lines of like, why would I want to make the switch from Glock to Sig? And in that video, I mentioned that I actually had already spent a little bit of time shooting different friends' Sig models, whether it was an XL or just the standard. I did get to shoot maybe a couple hundred rounds through it before I actually owned one, but owning it, being able to take it to the range whenever I want and kind of do different drills and stuff is kind of a whole different experience. And I've been able to put roughly about 1,000 rounds through a model of the Sig P365. Something that I hadn't experienced with the Sig before I purchased it was shooting with a red dot. And I guess that's not like 100% true because I had shot a friend's XL and he had an optic on it, but that was well before I even knew how to use an optic. So I was losing the dot left and right, and it made it annoying to shoot it, period, because it was kind of a different grip angle and just platform than I was used to. And then on top of that, I was just getting introduced to a dot and it was kind of confusing for me. So with this new experience of actually owning it, I did wind up trying out the Romeo Zero, and we'll talk about that in a completely different video, but I was not a fan, and so I immediately switched that out for my Holosun 507K. In terms of how I actually feel having put, about 1,000, maybe a little over 1,000 rounds through it now, I honestly do still feel like it's more snappy than I'm used to, but that is really kind of a common thing and almost to be expected with smaller guns. So I've gone from carrying the 48 and I've put probably at least 3 times the amount of rounds through my 48, if not more. And my 48 is the gun that I've taken to literally every formal shooting class I've ever been to. So I'm really, really familiar with my 48. It's certainly the gun that I am the most familiar with. And so going from that to the Sig P365X, and mind you, I did take off the X grip. I took off the longer grip and I just have the standard size grip. And again, I'll do a whole different video on why I went with the model that I did. But I found that the larger grip is somewhat more comfortable to shoot with. The smaller grip kind of gives me less of a good grip out of the holster just to start, which again is really, really different from the platform I'm used to working with, where the 48, I have plenty of room for getting a full grip on that gun. Just a couple of days ago, I ran through a drill completely cold after I had basically taken 2 solid months off of doing any kind of shooting at all. And I started off with my Glock 48 and I ran through this drill. I didn't pass the drill, and so I ran it again and I passed it just fine. But then I tried to do the same drill with my Sig, and again, I'm just not as familiar with it, and I noticed a humongous difference in my shooting performance. And of course, that has little to do with the actual hardware that I'm using and has a lot more to do with my actual shooting ability. But I will say that that is a little bit of a testament to how confident I feel with one over the other. But the thing that I'm really, really loving about the Sig and what we're gonna get into now is what it's like carrying and concealing it. So around the same time that I got my Sig in, Philster released the Enigma Express. And so I pretty much immediately just picked up an Enigma Express and a sport belt to use for my new Sig. And I've been kind of rocking and rolling with that ever since. I haven't really changed anything. I've played around with really, really small wedges a little bit. And I have found that with the shorter muzzle, I'm able to use more wedge than I would with my 48 because the length of the 48 muzzle kind of does the job of the wedge for me. And so I don't need it. And it also adds a little bit of below the belt printing if I use a wedge with my 48. and it doesn't really do that as much with the Sig just because it's notably shorter. I did also try using the Sig P365XL holster with that same setup to just kind of see if I could get even better performing concealment out of the longer holster, and that kind of pertains to the keel principle. I'll link a helpful video on that above if you've not heard of it before, but I didn't really wind up needing it. And the Enigma kind of helps with the keel principle in and of itself, and so especially with this size of gun, I just didn't really feel like I needed the longer holster, so running just the standard P365 holster with that muzzle length is not a problem for me at all. I will say that the actual grip texture on the Sig is notably more rough than anything else I've ever carried, and so I definitely have to wear something between my skin and the gun, whether that's an undershirt or something else. I don't feel comfortable, especially for long periods of time, having that grip rubbing up against my skin. But oh my goodness, it is so much easier to conceal than my Glock 48. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely do still love my Glocks, but the grip angle and then overall size of the Sig P365 is just notably easier to conceal. Again, partially because of size, but I think also the actual grip angle, I don't necessarily prefer for shooting, but that grip angle is really ideal, I think, for concealment. It just kind of blends in with the natural curves of the body than the kind of brick-like grip shape that Glock has. Something that I've really enjoyed about carrying and concealing this gun is, again, it's easier to do that in. And so I can kind of push the limits of concealment a little bit more than I can with a larger gun. So I can wear notably tighter clothing. Still can't wear skin tight clothes. You're literally strapping a piece of metal to your body. But I can wear pretty fitted clothes with my Sig P365 paired with my Enigma and everything a lot more easily than I can with my other guns. Overall, it definitely serves the purpose that I intended it to. When I went looking for this concealed carry gun, I was looking for something that was a smaller footprint, came optics ready if possible, but also provided me with the same amount of rounds or more than I was already carrying. And in my 48, I was carrying 10, and in the standard P365, that's what I can put in my magazine. I would say that my only complaint is that it's not as shootable as my larger guns, but that's pretty much to be expected. There's definitely going to be some follow-up videos with this gun, specifically about why I chose the X over the other two P365 models, and I also want to do a little bit more of a longer-term impressions video. So thanks for watching today's video, and don't forget to go check out Big Tech's Ordnance online and at their range in Conroe, Texas. I'll see you guys in my next video.